This is the Louie T Network.
Draft Zone. Draft Zone.
Welcome, you are in the lab room. I'm your host, Lou. Thank you for joining me here on this program, 2014 NFL Draft Wrap-Up Series. Who's next format? Be the first to leave a comment at the bottom of this and future videos stating next and the team you want to see next. You have to be first, people. You gotta be first. You may appear to be first, but if you're not first, then you aren't going to see your team next on this series. It's really simple. Look in the comment section and make sure that you're the first to leave the comment stating next and the team you want to see next. You can state next in the team you want to see next, but if you're not first, your team isn't going to be next on this series. Okay? So just make sure that you're the first. All right? It's a competition. You gotta be first. By hook, by crook, whatever you gotta do, be first. You gotta win. However, every team is going to be done on this program. Okay? Now, of course, you want your team to be next. So it's your job to make sure that you're first. And I know this thing is random, but hey, gotta deal with it. You gotta find a way to get it done. Be first, next, and the team that you want to see next. So, how do we grade them out? Simple. Baseball grading scale here on this program. Single, double, triple, home run. There are no strikeouts here in the draft wrap-up series. As we cannot tell how these players will pan out, don't want to discount anybody, do not want to count anyone out. And so there are no strikeouts. And so what we'll do is get a grade for each individual player, add them up, get an aggregate score for each and every single team, grade them out overall, move out, and move on to the next team in the process who will be picked by you, the viewer. So, sounds simple enough? It is. So, I've got my handy dandy pointer. I've got my big board behind me. Today we're talking Jacksonville Jaguars here on the 2014 NFL Draft Wrap-Up Series. So let's get to the board and talk about Gus Bradley and David Caldwell's haul for the 2014 NFL Draft. And so we move to the board. We're talking about the Jaguars, and we're talking about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 selections. A team that I really like what they're doing and the direction that they're heading. Let's talk about their draft. And they threw the first curveball at us in this draft. And what was one of the best drafts in recent, or excuse me, first rounds in recent history. I think Jacksonville kind of set the tone for us at number 3. First round, 3rd overall selection, quarterback out of Central Florida, Blake Bortles. And whoa, who saw this one coming? I know I didn't. And my thing is, you know my mantra, you know my motto, get your guy when you feel the need to get your guy. And the Jacksonville Jaguars knew all along what they wanted to do. And I was wrong. I said Gus Bradley wants to get his Leo. He wants to get that game-changing outside linebacker / defensive end that you can move around like a chess piece. And I thought that guy was Khalil Mack. And I thought, there's no way if Mack's on the board that they pass on Khalil Mack. I was wrong. And I say this all the time as well. You don't have a quarterback in this league, you don't have a chance. And it's apparent the Jacksonville Jaguars lack that go-to guy, that quarterback that they can turn around and look to, that everyone looks as a leader and a guy that can take them down the field and put points on the scoreboard consistently. They lack that guy, that face of the franchise player that can take them to the next level. And if you don't have a quarterback, you'll be a 4-12, a 3-13, a 5-11 team consistently, because you can get by with a backup quarterback in this league. You're just not going to win very many games. And the Jacksonville Jaguars have been doing that. And you know, when you mess up, when you pick the wrong guy at the quarterback position in the first round, it can set your franchise back 4 or 5 years. And the good thing about the Jaguars is they've had some turnover within the front office. Some new blood has come in, and the mistakes that some of the guys have made before them hasn't hindered them in their decision-making process. They came in and they said, hey, look, he's not our guy. We didn't draft him. He's not working out. We can see that he's not the quarterback of the future here, that being Blaine Gabbert. And so they got rid of Blaine Gabbert, and they were ready to move on from him. They came in and they said, hey, we're going to give you an opportunity. He couldn't stay healthy, which has been something that's been his bugaboo as well. And he didn't play good football. And so that was enough for them to say, hey, we realized there was a mistake made here. It's not too late to move on. Let's just move on. And so they take the opportunity to get what I think and I perceive to be the best quarterback in this draft in 2014 in Blake Bortles out of Central Florida. He's the guy that everybody was talking about potentially going #1 overall to Houston early on in the process, and for good reason. To me, when you think of a quarterback in your mind, this is the guy you draw up right here, 6'5", 230 pounds, big enough arm. He didn't have a Joe Flacco arm. He didn't have one of these slingshots that just, but it's good enough. It's a very solid arm that can make every single throw, and that's all I care about. Can you make every single throw on the football field without any problems? And the answer is yes. He can make every single throw that he needs to make to be an effective passer. So his arm doesn't worry me one iota. And so he's got everything you're looking for. His mobility, he's faster than what you think he's going to be because of his size. And that 4.9 340 that he timed and clocked out at, don't pay that any attention because this guy plays faster than that. So, I saw Jadeveon Clowney trying to run him down. Now, look, if Clowney would have had another 5 yards of real estate, he would have hawked him down. But in a short space, he was able to create enough separation from Clowney to get rid of the football. He's faster than what he appears to be. So he's deceptively quick and fast. Don't allow him to fool you, because if he gets out of the pocket, he can move. He's got great pocket presence about himself. He knows how to manipulate the pocket, can climb it, it drops back, rushes coming. He can step up into the pocket. And I just talked about his size. And this is why, to me, he's the best in this draft, because of his sheer physicality at the quarterback position. A lot of people want to make the comparison to Ben Roethlisberger, and it's a very apt comparison, because when you look at the footage and the film and you watch him on tape, it's very cogent that he has a lot of the same skill sets as Ben Roethlisberger. And the thing that I love is he just shrugs guys off in the pocket. He's tough to bring down. If you don't come with some force and 2 hands, that one hand, I got you, I'm not letting you go type of thing, not going down with Blake Bortles in the pocket. He's just going to shrug you off. And he always keeps his eyes down the field. He's looking to make a play, not with his legs necessarily, but with his arms, whether he's got to get out of the pocket with his legs or he's shrugging off a defender who's trying to hold him up. He's still keeping his eyes down the field, looking for a target. And so that's another thing that you love about him. He's always looking to make a play down the field, not trying to get out to run away from pressure. So he's a guy that's a special talent. And watching him on film, he's got an even keel calmness about him when the pressure's on. He's one of those guys. Remember the story about Joe Montana in the Super Bowl? They're losing to Cincinnati down by 6 late in the ball game. And they got like a 92-yard drive staring them in the face for the game. About, a little bit less than 2 minutes to go in that football game. And he comes into the huddle and he says, hey guys, look, there's John Candy. And everybody looks. And everybody says, oh, hey, that is John Candy standing over there. And it kind of calms everybody down, and they go down the field, put together that 92-yard drive. Joe Montana is magnificent, throws a touchdown pass to John Taylor. They win the football game. That's the kind of moxie, the poise that Blake Bortles possesses. He plays with a chip on his shoulder because he was overlooked in high school, overlooked in college. And so he feels like he's the guy that's going to get it done every single time when he's being put in a position. Now, there are a couple of things that he has to work on. Nobody's perfect, and he is not a polished and finished product yet. He has to work on certain things. First things first, much like Jimmy Garoppolo, a lot of his snaps came out of the shotgun, okay? So those are some things that he's going to have to work on, taking snaps from under the center, making sure that his footwork is correct. He's going to have to turn his back to the defense. These are all things that I've already talked about with a guy like Jimmy Garoppolo and some of these other quarterbacks that come out of that shotgun spread look. But I don't think that's going to be a tough transition for him. And the Jaguars have already said, hey, we really don't want this guy to play in 2014 if he doesn't have to. We'd love for him to sit down for a year, learn the speed of the game, learn the playbook, really have a great grasp of what we're asking him to do, and then come in and be our starter from here on out in 2015. So if they have it their way, he won't see the field. So he'll have time to fix some of the things that we deem as issues, and one of them being he played from a strictly shotgun offense. Another thing is he doesn't throw receivers open down the field. When he's throwing a football 15 yards and in, I mean, the guy is as accurate as you'll see in this draft as far as being a passer is concerned. It's when he's got to dial it up and go 25, 30, 40, 45 yards down the field. The South Carolina game was one of those ones that it sort of aggravated me because you see everything you're looking for, and they had opportunities to win that football game, but there were a couple of throws that he missed, and he made some mistakes, threw some interceptions that could have been avoided had he made proper reads or he made the proper throw. And I'll give you an example. His player is open down the field, runs a post. South Carolina is in a zone coverage. His guy gets free, is running a deep post up the middle of the field. There's a safety coming over from the other side of the field. So I would have loved to have seen Blake Bortles manipulate that safety a little bit better with his eyes, but it's fine. That safety was late. And so if Bortles puts the ball over the top with air under it, leads him to the back of the end zone, it's a touchdown. They might win that football game. However, he sees the receiver open. He decides he wants to get it to him now, throws it on a line, on a rope, allows that safety to come over who's late and make a play on that football and cut that receiver off. Had he led him with air, that safety wouldn't have been able to make it there in time to break that pass up. It's probably a touchdown. And so those are things that he'll work on. And again, that comes with experience, that comes with time, that comes with coaching. That's an easy, fixable problem there. And so there's not a lot not to like here with Blake Bortles. There's a lot here to work with. And I think when it's all said and done, he's going to be the best quarterback in this draft. Jacksonville fooled me by picking Bortles, but this is a wonderful pick for them because they need to take that next step. Gus Bradley can build this defense up from the ground up. He can make them a competitive defense. But if you can't get the points on the scoreboard as an offense, if you don't have a guy that you can trust to get it done in the clutch, if you don't have a quarterback in this league, you don't have a chance. And now the Jacksonville Jaguars have their man in Blake Bortles. First pick, third overall selection, quarterback out of Central Florida, Blake Bortles. You know what this is. It's a home run. Home run. In the first round, Jaguars smash it out of the park. This is a wonderful pick by the Jacksonville Jaguars. And like I said, it surprised many, but it was the right pick. And that's their guy. They got their guy. They sought their guy out. They figured out who their man was, and they got their guy at the number 3 spot in the first round. I absolutely love that pick for the Jacksonville Jaguars. You move on to the second round. 2 of these for the Jacksonville Jaguars. 39th overall selection, wide receiver out of USC, Marqise Lee. I was amazed that Marqise Lee was here at 39. And I had said throughout the process that I wasn't enamored with him. I wasn't. I'm not going to sit here and act as if I was a cheerleader for Marqise Lee, because I wasn't. I didn't really see a lot out of Marqise Lee, but that's because I didn't watch the 2012 Marqise Lee. I saw the 2013 Marqise Lee, and the Marqise Lee that I saw in 2013 was unimpressive. He was just another guy. And you know how I am. I have a bias against USC receivers. I could go down the list and run off about 6 or 7 USC receivers that have come in, highly touted over the last 7, 8, 9, 10 years and haven't done much of anything. Kerry Colbert, Damian Williams, Mike Williams, Steve Smith. I could go on and on and on. And it's just Dwayne Jarrett. Look, I don't need to run down the list of these guys that have come in the league and did absolutely nothing. Okay? Just know that I have a bias for a reason against USC receivers. And so when I see this guy, I think of him. I look at the rest of these guys. And I'm hoping Robert Woods, who was drafted by the Buffalo Bills a season ago, will start to curtail that a bit and make USC receivers actually a viable option in the NFL. And I thought he played solid last year. Lost his temper at times. But Marqise Lee is another one of these guys that you put on the tape from 2012 and you go, wow, it blows you away. I mean, he had one game, and I can't recall the team it was against. Maybe it was Arizona. But the guy, I want to say it was Arizona, the guy had like 16 catches for like 345, 50 yards, something crazy like that. I mean, he was magnificent. And in that game, it wasn't all the same thing. It wasn't, oh, he caught a bubble screen and ran for 67 yards. He was catching every route you could imagine. Digs, slants, outs, ups, 9 routes. He was beating them posts. You name it, he was making it happen in that game. He single-handedly kept his team in that game. They ultimately lost, but not because Marqise Lee didn't get it done, that's for sure. And he was just explosive in 2012. He was healthy. You could see that he had playmaker written all over him, whether he was getting it in the kickoff return game or he was catching a slant, he was catching a bubble screen, he was running a 9 route. His ability to change gears and explode past defenders that had an angle on him, uncanny in 2012. The run after the catch, ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. I mean, his ability to catch the football, make a guy miss, the agility was joystick-like. I felt like I was playing Madden 2010 with the ability to jump, stop, cut, and stop and start. I mean, guys were falling all over the place. It was one play where he jumps, makes a guy miss, that guy gets back up, makes him miss again, makes another guy miss, and then gets 12 yards and then gets tackled from behind. I mean, he's that type of athlete, just freakishly athletic with the agility to match. And he's got a slender frame, and so that was one thing that concerned you, but in 2012 it wasn't an issue. You go to 2013, and that frame kind of caught up with him. He got nicked and dinged up, wasn't the same guy, he lacked that explosiveness, was dealing with a knee injury, was dealing with some ankle injuries, and so he was never the same guy in 2013. Some argued that Robert Woods and his presence, or lack thereof, kind of allowed teams to focus in on him, but there was another guy out there, Aguilar, that was making plays, and so I felt like there was enough attention being spread out amongst other players making plays that he had the space and the opportunity to make plays. He just wasn't healthy. And so it was like night and day. And it never helps when your quarterback situation isn't squared away. You don't know who's getting you the football. You go from Matt Barkley to, another quarterback, and things kind of fall off the table a bit. So there were some, mitigating circumstances. It doesn't matter. At the end of the day, he wasn't the same guy in 2013, and I think largely because he was not healthy. So if you're getting the guy that was an All-American and arguably the best player in college football in 2012, then Jacksonville, you got to feel like you got to steal. And I said all of that stuff about him throughout the process. I still thought he was a first-round pick. I never thought that he wouldn't be in the first round. I said, hey, Kelvin Benjamin would drop out of the first round before this guy does. And I love Kelvin Benjamin. You know how I feel about Kelvin Benjamin. You can't teach that kind of height, that kind of catch radius, but Marqise Lee is a better receiver than Colvin Benjamin. And so the way I look at it, in the second round, 39th overall selection, wide receiver out of USC, Marqise Lee, you can put it on the board. Yeah. It's a home run. I mean, this is a steal in the second round. I mean, the Jaguars probably were sprinting 4.4 speed to get that card up to the commissioner to let him know that we want this guy on our football team. I'm pretty sure if somebody called up to trade here, because the Jaguars were shaking and moving on the phones on draft days. They were moving around. They were moving back. They were moving up. They were acquiring picks. They did a really good job of getting players that they targeted early in this draft. And to see Marqise Lee here at the 39th selection, 7th in the second round, the Jaguars were like, they got their guy. And we know about Justin Blackmon and his saga, and he's probably not even going to see the field in 2014. And so you can almost say they're going to have to give up on that guy at some point. You don't want to, because in his limited action, he's shown the ability to be a playmaker. You don't want to give up on him, but the fact of the matter is you can't rely on him. And so the one thing you have to do for young quarterbacks is you have to get them targets. You don't want to set them up for failure. The Jacksonville Jaguars have been building an offensive line for years. For years. They've been selecting guys high in the draft along the offensive line, but they never had a quarterback. And so they were trying to protect a guy in Blaine Gabbert that wasn't worth protecting. So now you move on to the next part of the process, and that's finding a quarterback. Well, they got that. They got the offensive line. They feel like they've got a running back, going out and getting Toby Gerhart. And so now you're looking around, you're like, what else do we need? You need targets. And, hey, I like Cecil Shorts III. I like Ace Sanders. I don't love those guys. I love Marqise Lee as a #1 option. But you're not done yet. And this is the beauty of this draft early on. I'm going to tell you what. After day 2 of the Jacksonville Jaguars draft, I'm going to tell you this. I'm only going to say it once. I was in love. I thought they had the best draft after 2 days. Or one of the best drafts. I won't say they had the best draft. I thought they had one of the best drafts after day 2, and here's why. Second round, 61st overall selection, wide receiver out of Penn State, Allen Robinson. 6'3", 215-pound wide receiver. Is running a sub 4.5 40, can jump. And he disappointed me at the combine, not going to lie. I sat in this very seat after the combine was completed, and I said Allen Robinson might have been single-handedly the most disappointing receiver at the combine. I was really upset with him because here's this guy highly touted out of Penn State, a lot of production, so you feel like he's going to come in and blow it up. And he ran a 4.6 40, and he looked lethargic, and he was dropping the football. I was disappointed in Allen Robinson, to say the least. Okay, but the tape doesn't lie. He went to Penn State, ran the 40 over, and performed really well at his pro day. He upped his time to what you saw on tape. Because on tape, you saw a sub 4.5 40 guy. Okay? You saw a guy that caught the football, could snatch it out of the air away from his frame. You saw a guy that used his body at times to make plays. Now, we'll talk about some of his deficiencies a bit later, but the thing that is stunning about Allen Robinson at Penn State is that the run after the catch is phenomenal. His run after the catch makes him a second-round pick, makes him a borderline first-round pick. Without the run after the catch, he's just another receiver. But there's another gear, there's another dimension that he goes into when he catches the football. And there's a play. If you really want to see the true essence of what Allen Robinson can bring to the table, turn on the Ohio State 2013 tape. They're getting their brains bashed in that football game. I'm talking 48-7 at this juncture of the game. They throw him a hitch, essentially, basically a bubble screen. And it's a slot screen. He's in a slot. He takes a step back. They throw him the football. And as he catches the football, there are about 2 Ohio State defenders waiting on him. It's a bad throw. It's low. He gathers himself. He looks up, and there's trouble. Danger. Danger, Robinson. Yeah. He looks up. There's nowhere to go. Nowhere to go. And all of a sudden, he reverses field. And you're looking like, okay, maybe there's something here now. I mean, he's made something out of nothing. When you catch the football, you look up, there's 2 defenders waiting on you, and you're 5 yards behind the line of scrimmage. You're just looking to get back to the line of scrimmage. You're looking to pick up positive yardage. Well, he reverses field, and all of a sudden, he picks up a convoy of blockers, and he shows the speed to get to the outside. And so you're like, wow, he turned this into something. And he starts running up the sideline. You're like, hey, wait a minute. There's really something here. And then as that backside pursuit starts to catch up with him as he's setting up blockers, he reverses field again, cuts back all the way across the grain, and outruns the entire Ohio State defense, lunges into the end zone for about a 62-yard touchdown on an improbable play. And it shows you the yards after catch. He's one of the most explosive and dangerous players with the football in his hands. And we made that same comment about Cordarrelle Patterson a season ago, and you saw what he was able to do in 2013 as a rookie. When you get guys that are playmakers with the football in their hands, they're so dangerous because it doesn't take much to get them in a position where they can score points. You can throw them a hitch, you can throw them a slant, you can throw them a bubble screen, and they can do the rest. And Allen Robinson is one of those type of guys, and with his size at 6'3", 215 pounds, he's a load to deal with. Now, let's talk about some of the things he needs to improve on in his game. One of them being he's got to be able to make better catches in traffic. I think for his size, I expect him to go up, high point the football, and make plays versus smaller corners, smaller defenders in traffic. Just because there's a couple of guys around doesn't mean that you've got to body catch the football. Doesn't mean that you've got to have problems catching the football. I need you to show off the talent that you possess. I need you to show off the height. And I need you to go and make plays in traffic. Now, he did that at college at times, but there were times where there were a defender or 2 around. They squeezed it into him. And look, it's not the most conducive situation to catching a football when you're double covered, but if it's there and you're there and you can make a play on a football, that's why you're a number 1 receiver. That's why you're a big-time player. I expect you to make that play. At times, he did not do that at Penn State. However, I don't know if he'll be a number 1 receiver. I don't think they're going to ask him to be a number 1 receiver in Jacksonville. I think he'll be a really good number 2 because I feel like Cecil Shorts III is a great number 3 receiver. If you can put this guy in the slot, for what he brings to the table, he's got number 2 ability, but you put him in the slot, I think the Jacksonville Jaguars have a really good receiving corps because you think about this. Marqise Lee on one side, Allen Robinson on the other as your receivers on the edges, your X and your Y. You put Ace Sanders in there, you put Cecil Shorts III in there, and you got interchangeable parts as well because Marqise Lee can play in the slot, so can Cecil Shorts III. Both of those guys can play outside as well as in the slot. So Ace Sanders can play in the slot as well. So you got 2 slot guys in Cecil Shorts III and Ace Sanders. You put those guys outside in Lee and Robinson. And to me, those are 2 of your better yards after catch receivers in this draft. So you put that kind of speed and talent on the field at once. And we saw what Cecil Shorts III was when he was healthy in 2012. If he can get back to that, you saw flashes from Ace Sanders last year. Not to mention Brown was out there playing some good football. This receiving corps is coming together, and I really like what the Jaguars did here. In the second round, 61st overall selection, wide receiver out of Penn State. You put the yards after catch, the production, the height, what it means for Blake Bortles, what he means for this team, and where you were able to land him. This was the guy that we were talking about potentially going early second round. I mean, as a Redskins fan, I was doing homework on Allen Robinson for a long time because at 34, before we got Deshaun Jackson, he was in play at 34. And so to get him at 61, to trade around and come back up and select this guy, you can put it on the board. Yeah. In the second round, wide receiver out of Penn State. Allen Robinson is a home run for me. I like this guy a lot. I like what he brings to the table. I love the yards after the catch. That run after the catch is dynamic. And you're getting your young quarterback targets that he can grow with. in 4 years, we could look down the road and say the Jacksonville Jaguars are one of the better teams in their division, and this draft right here in 2014 will be the reason why. If the Jaguars are competing for a AFC South crown in 3-4 years from now, this draft will be a huge part of the reason why, because of the quarterback and the targets that you were able to go out and get for that young quarterback in Lee and Robinson. We move on to the 3rd round, 93rd overall selection, guard out of Miami, Brandon Linder. Here's a guy that is a dual threat. He's multifaceted. It's crazy. You rarely see this out of a player in a game, where the team in game from play to play will move a guy from guard to tackle. But that's what they did at Miami with Brandon Linder. He would start the game at guard. 4 plays into the game, he's at tackle. By the second drive, he's at tackle primarily. And then in the middle of that possession, maybe the 8th play of a 12-play drive, he's at guard. So you really had to do your homework and pay attention to this guy. He was all over the place. He was at guard, he was at tackle, and I truly think he's a guard. When I look at him, he is a guard because speed beats him on the edges. He's a tough guy. He's got a nasty streak, and he'll compete, he'll hustle, he'll do all the little things. They pulled him at Miami. He's got really good mobility. I think he can get to the second level. He surprised me because I looked at his body type. I looked at the knee braces. I said he's probably a guy that doesn't move very well. And I was surprised because he got to the second level and he was able to get a body on guys. Now, his problem for me is that he can be moved and he can be beat by speed. So he's not one of these guys that you look at and you say to yourself, okay, he's got something here, where if he locks onto you, you're not going anywhere, or he's athletically gifted enough to, when he's beaten, he can still recover. No, I think that he can be beaten by speed. Where he struggles the most to me is core strength. He doesn't move you initially with a jolt. There's no shock in his hands. And stronger defenders throw this guy around like a rag doll. I put on LSU tape. I put on Florida State tape. These guys were pitching Brandon Linder all over the place. I mean, I looked at him and I'm like, okay, what you got for me, big boy? And the first tape I put on was Pitt. And he was dominating Pitt. And then I said, okay, this looks really promising. He played really well at tackle and guard in that game. I said, all right, time to see what you're doing against the big boys. So I put on LSU, or excuse me, I put on Florida State. And they dominated him. They dominated him every which way, 6 ways to Sunday. They were throwing this guy around left and right. And it's like, you know how you see guys stack and shed? They were stacking this guy and they were shedding him some type of terrible. I mean, the ball carrier would come their way and they just, hey, man, get out of the way. And they would throw him away, discard him, and he'd be on the floor. And that I can't handle, especially from the tackle position. Because as a tackle, you set the edge. Okay? If I'm a ball carrier and a guy is stacking and shedding you, at least if you're on the interior of the line, I can go away from you. I can bounce it outside. If you're a tackle and people are doing that to you, and not just in the run game, they were doing this to him in the passing game as well. He doesn't anchor well. I mean, they were blowing this guy up. They were tossing him off to the side. So his versatility is going to help this team. I just don't think he's that strong at the point of attack. And guys have too easy a time of tossing him away and getting to the quarterback or the ball carrier. Now, I think he's a little bit better at pass protection in terms of holding his ground. He's going to give up ground, but he's not going to allow the guy to just totally obliterate him on every single snap. There are going to be some times where he just gets beat. Pure and simple. Just get beat, but he'll hold his ground. Like I said, he's a guy that competes, and I do like that about him. He's not a guy that's just going like, oh, hell, I got beat. You know, he's going to do everything he can to try to make sure that hey, I might have been beaten on this play, but I'm going to try to give my quarterback. And with a guy like Blake Bortles, he's not going to need much. If you're beaten, if you can just get a little piece and force that guy to just be able to stick his arm out, Blake can get away. And so he'll compete in that sense. He'll give his quarterback a chance, even if he's beaten, to try to get away from that pressure. But I think his versatility is what really struck the Jaguars as a thing that, hey, we can work with this guy because he can play tackle, he can play guard. And so you see that kind of versatility, you're thinking, hey, in a pinch, we got a guy that can play 3 out of the 5 positions on this offensive line. He can play both left and right guard, and he can play right tackle. We'll take it. We'll see what he can do. If he can't start, at worst, we've got one heck of a backup offensive lineman. You like these swing guys that can play multiple positions on the line. And worst case scenario, Brandon Linder will be there for you. I'm thinking you're looking at him as a right guard on your offensive line. And if they can coach him up right, show him how to use proper technique, because I don't think he's going to win with any dominant skill. There's not a dominant trait here with Brandon Linder. But if he can win with technique, if he can win by using proper leverage and technique, you might have something here. In the 3rd round, 93rd overall selection, offensive guard out of Miami, Brandon Linder for me. Because of his versatility, he's a solid pick. He's a double for me. I really don't like him as much. I'm not enamored with him. But his versatility will offer the Jaguars the flexibility to put him in multiple positions and see, hey, where does this guy benefit us the best? Guard, tackle. I think he's a guard in this league. I just don't think he's strong enough at the point of attack. He's quick enough to be out on an island at tackle. You stick him inside and guard, and he's got the ability to rely on the center for a little bit of help to the inside, and I think he's got enough movement skills and enough strength to handle the guard position more so than the tackle position. So you move on to the 4th round, 114th overall selection, cornerback out of Oklahoma, Aaron Colvin. Here's a guy that you watch on tape and he competes. Longer corner at around 5'11", 6 feet. You look at him, he just looks long. He looks the part. He competes. The thing that I don't like about Aaron Colvin is that he plays off. He's a guy that likes to play 7, 8, 9, 10 yards off the ball. But even when he's off, he competes. If that guy runs a slant route in front of him, he'll jump it. He'll pick it off. He'll get into play. He'll deflect it. He's around the football a lot. I just like to see him be a little bit more aggressive in terms of coming up. But again, he knows his limitations. And here's why I say that. Because when he comes up, he gets beat. And so he understands, I can't come up, get in the face of a receiver because I don't have the ability to turn and run with the elite receivers. I'll give you an example. 2012 tape, West Virginia. Geno Smith, Stedman Bailey, Tavon Austin, and that group of guys, all of them in the NFL right now. And remember, Stedman Bailey just had a cartoonish 2012 season, something like 25 or 26 touchdowns receiving in that season. And he had about 3 or 4 of them against Oklahoma in a shootout of a ball game. And he lit Aaron Colvin up. He absolutely lit him up like a Christmas tree. And the problem with him in that game was Colvin had his moments in that game. But his moments came when Geno Smith took too long to uncork the football when he was playing 10 yards off the ball. And he'd throw a slant, and Geno Smith would be late, and he had the opportunity to come up, compete, challenge the play, and get in and make a play on the football. But when he came up and challenged Stedman Bailey ran past Aaron Colvin and made plays in this football game. And I think Stedman Bailey might have lit him up for about 3 touchdowns in that game. Over 150 yards receiving. And so Colvin is a guy that will compete. I like his length. And I like the fact that he's not afraid to tackle. He will come up, get in your face, and tackle you. He's not afraid to throw a shoulder in there. He's not afraid to come down, shoot the cuffs. So I like his physicality. I like that he competes for the football. He's not going to just allow you to catch it. But again, I don't know what suits him best. He's definitely better in off-man coverage than press. And I think he's a guy that if you put him in zone coverage, he'll compete. He'll watch the quarterback's eyes, figure out where he's going with the football and try to make a play. But with all that being said, you still got to have guys that can come up and play press. And he's physical enough to play press coverage. But maybe he's better at press and bail technique. But He's just got to be able to stay on top of the receiver, because if the guy gets on top of him, he doesn't have makeup speed. He doesn't have elite top-end speed, that long-distance speed that you're looking for to be able to recover and make a play on the football. So he's a solid corner. I mean, everything you see on tape, other than the fact that when he comes up, he gets beat, there's a lot to like here with this guy. There's a lot to work with if they can find a way to get pressure on the quarterback and alleviate some of the deeper throws down the field. In a short space, 10 to 15 yards within the line of scrimmage, I think this guy's an excellent corner. It's when guys get to put pressure on him down the field is when you get to see him get beaten. So I think he's better in zone coverage, better in off man than he is in press. And Jaguars will figure that out quickly and figure out how to put this guy in positions to make plays on the football in the 4th round, 114th overall selection, cornerback out of Oklahoma. Aaron Colvin for me is a double. Solid corner. Doesn't blow me away with any of his traits. He'll compete. He'll tackle. I like both of those things. Doesn't have top-end speed. So guys with speed that can track the football over the shoulder will give him problems in the passing game. I think he's better off man and in zone coverage. We'll see how the Jaguars decide to use him. They've got some corners out in Jacksonville, some young guys that over these next couple of years, it'll be telling to see how well these coaches in Jacksonville can coach up these young guys, because they've got about 3 or 4 young corners on this roster that I want to see them develop these guys and turn them into football players. And so we'll see if Aaron Colvin can join Dwayne Gratz and some of the other guys you have on this roster and become a better secondary. You look at the 5th round, 144th overall selection, linebacker out of Florida State, Telvin Smith. One of the most interesting prospects in this draft, Telvin Smith. Here's a guy, 6'3", 215 pounds. Yes, I said linebacker, 215 pounds. And you watch him on tape, he has the body of a safety. There's no doubt about it. 6'3", 215, you're thinking to yourself, why not just move this guy to safety? Make this decision easy. Because you look at Telvin Smith, you say, where does this guy fit into the equation? I mean, you can get away with that stuff in college. 215, 6'3", you know. You can't do that in the NFL. You know that. I know that. Jags know that. So what is your vision for this guy? What are you going to ask him to do at this level? Because you can't move him to safety. I've talked about this numerous times throughout the process after the combine. I've talked about this in several different videos because he's such a enigma. He's such a talented football player with all the intangibles. I hear that he's a great student of the game. He's a great teammate, leader on and off the field. All the things that you're looking for when you're building a football team. I don't know the guy, but if everyone's saying that, then that's great. That's just extra added value from a guy that comes from Florida State, a big program, and was one of the leaders of that team, was a captain. So he was well respected on that football team. But the fact of the matter still remains, who are you? What do I do with you? Because at 215, you can't play linebacker in this league. So the first thing is they've got to get him in the weight training program. They've got to put weight on this guy. And his frame says that he can easily gain 10 or 15 pounds. Is he the same athlete at 230, at 235 that he is at 215? That remains to be seen, because you'd like to think that at Florida State, he knew he had to gain weight, so why wouldn't he have been gaining weight then? Again, I don't know. The answer to that, maybe he felt comfortable at 215. He was allowed to get away with it, so why not? And so you look at him at the combine, and I was anxious to see if he could, in fact, make the transition to safety. Because at some point, he had to be a safety. At that size, you got to think he was a safety at some point. And he couldn't do it. I just didn't see the fluidity. I didn't see him being comfortable out in space the way I thought he was going to be. I said, he's got to be able to make that change, that transition. And I just didn't see it. He's not a natural fit as a safety. So the guy is a linebacker. And he's got to put on weight. And if he puts on 15 pounds, because I don't think 10 pounds is enough. I don't think 225 is enough. And he's an outside linebacker that can run with tight ends. And with that size, at 6'3", he's perfect for that outside linebacker role. that weak side outside linebacker in a 3-4 defense, in a 4-3 defense, doesn't matter. He can cover the tight end. He can cover him like a blanket. At 6'3", he can go with the Jimmy Grahams, the Vernon Davises of the world, the Rob Gronkowskis. He can run step for step with many of those guys, and he can jump and leap with them. And so he's the quintessential weak side outside linebacker in this league. And if they can figure out how to get this guy to work, and I think you got something. In a 3-4 defense, he's the weak side inside linebacker. He's the guy that you want playing over the tight end. In a 4-3 defense, he's that will linebacker. He's that weak side linebacker that you want over the tight end. And he's the quintessential outside linebacker in this league. In a league that's turning into a pass-happy league full of tight ends that are hybrids, that split out into the slot, that split out wide, that are mismatched nightmares. This is the perfect chess piece to combat that in this league. And so there is a place for Telvin Smith in this league. He just has to put on weight to be able to sustain the rigors of the NFL game. He's got to be able to stand up at the point of attack. Every play isn't a pass play. So he's got to be able to stand up and be stout at the point of attack. He did a pretty good job of that in college, but this isn't college, big boy. This is the NFL, and guys will take him and move him out of the way 10 yards if he's 215 pounds. Because he'll essentially be a safety at linebacker, and that's not allowed in this league. So if he puts on the weight, you got yourself a football player, because he was a playmaker at Florida State. Interceptions, knifing into the backfield at warp speed, bringing down ball carriers. He's not a guy that's going to run through a ball carrier, but he is a sure tackler. Sometimes he can be out of control, but with that speed on that frame, I'll take it every single day of the week. And so if he gains the weight and he can keep that athleticism, we're talking about a sub 4.5 40 guy. So if he can keep the athleticism but put on 15 pounds, you got yourself a steal. Here in the 5th round, 144th overall selection, linebacker out of Florida State, Telvin Smith, for me, is a triple. The guy makes plays. He's a freakishly athletic linebacker. And the only thing that scared teams away, it scared me away, was the size. What do you do with this guy? But if he can gain the weight, he's the quintessential outside linebacker in this league. He's the quintessential weak side or weak inside linebacker in this league. And in a league that is moving and morphing into multiple tight ends that are hybrids, that are pass catchers, that can run, that can jump, that can make plays on the football, you need a guy to combat that. And Telvin Smith is exactly what the doctor ordered to go against these tight ends in this league. In the 5th round, 159th overall selection, defensive end out of Arkansas, Chris Smith is your selection. And I look at this guy and started the point of attack, can get after the quarterback, has 2 moves, speed to the outside and a spin move back inside. It's crazy because he's very methodical in his approach. When you see him, there's almost no urgency to what he's doing. There was one snap, and I watched 3 tapes of this guy, and there was one snap that I saw him explode off the football. Other than that, everything he does seems methodical. He's a guy that you use in the run game to be stout at the point of attack. I think he does a wonderful job in the run game. Wonderful job in the run game. Standing up tackles and guards. If you're running a stunt, he's the guy that twists inside and takes on 2 blockers. Takes the tackle and the guard with him, holds them up, allows that guy from the inside to come outside and loop around. He does that beautifully. He just, to me, he just does everything slow. Just like, it's almost like he's more about making sure that he does his job correctly, and he does everything at his own leisurely pace. So even when he's rushing, I just don't see the explosiveness. And I feel like it's there. He can be explosive. I just don't see it enough. And he's the type of guy that will rush up the field, stop, the tackle will keep going, and that quarterback takes a step up, and he goes inside and gets the sack. He's that type of pass rusher, more so than the explosive off the edge, around the corner guy. Now, he'll put a spin move on you every now and again, and sometimes it's effective, sometimes it's not. But to me, he just moves around sluggishly, you know, and he can drop into coverage. They did that with him at Arkansas at times, dropped him into coverage, so he can do that as well. But where he's his best to me is in the run game, at the point of attack, setting the edge in the run game. He does a phenomenal job of getting on the outside shoulder of the tackle and basically forcing everything back inside. And if you run at him, he'll discard that tackle and get in on the play. There are numerous accounts of him throwing the tackle off to the side, stacking his shed and getting rid of him and getting to the ball carrier for a 1 or 2 yard loss. He does that really well. I think that's where his value is. He can get pressure on the quarterback, but to me, in the National Football League, if he doesn't show more explosiveness, more urgency, I think he is one of these guys that'll get you 4.5 to 6 sacks if he's a starter. If he's a rotational depth guy, he'll get you 3.5 sacks on a yearly basis. He doesn't strike me as a guy that can get you 8 to 10 unless he's going to start being a little bit more explosive from that defensive end spot. But I tell you what, he'll be a guy that makes tackles, start at the point of attack, will do his job. Whatever you ask him to do, he'll do it. He'll do it correctly. There's just not a lot of sense of urgency for me. And so, in the 5th round, 159th overall selection, defensive end out of Arkansas, Marqise Smith is a double. I think he's great at the point of attack in the run game. I think he can get pressure on the quarterback. Just he doesn't wow me with his ability to get to the quarterback. He doesn't explode off the snap of the ball, and I think he has the ability to do that, but he just doesn't for one reason or another. I think he is a guy that wants to do his job, and he wants to make sure that he's doing it correctly. So for him to do that, he can't explode off the football. You know, if he has outside contain, he doesn't want to get up the field too far, so he doesn't want to explode out of his stance. He'll just kind of must rush and make sure that he keeps the quarterback in the pocket, make sure that there's not a run coming back his way. And so he does everything methodically. And so he's a calculated defensive player. And so he's a double. In the 6th round, 205th overall selection, center out of Virginia, Bowanko is the selection. And he's a guy that gives you more versatility, much like Brandon Linder. He started all 12 games for Virginia this past season. 8 of them were at center, and the other 4 were at guard. So he's a versatile guy. I think by far his best position is center. And he's a bigger guy. He's long, got some long limbs on him. My problem, and this is, I'll just say this and then we'll move on to the next selection. My problem with Bowanko is he's late. He's never on time. He's always late. And it seems like he's moving in slow motion sometimes. And for a guy that's snapping the ball, I need you to speed up the process. When you're the center, when you snap the football, you've got a lot of jobs to do. You wear a lot of hats. Okay, as a center, you can't be late. All right, I need my center to be on time and prompt every single time. Because as a center, you look down, you look up, you look down, you snap the football, you got to get your head up. And you already know, as the center, more so than any other member of the offensive line, you've got to know what the protection scheme is, and you've got to know what's coming before it comes. So you've already got in your mind a situation where I snap the ball, I help double team this tackle to the inside, and then I know I've got a blitz or a free blitzer coming up the A-gap that I've got to get to, and I can't delay. I've got to really go and get to this double team here and get off and get to this blitz and linebacker. There can't be any delay. You've got to be hasty, okay? And for me, Bowanko is like he's moving in slow motion. And he snaps the football, and he gets to that double team, and then, zoom, and he's like, damn, I missed him. All right, I won't let it happen again. And so he snaps the football, and this time, he gets to that double team, and then there's nobody coming. And then he's got nothing to do. So then you're thinking to yourself, well, fall back, come around the outside. He's too slow. So that guard is handling that defensive tackle. The blitz is coming from the outside this time. go around and pick up that blitzer. He can't get there. So he's always slow. In the run game, snaps the football. They're running some zone read. So they're running some kind of zone. He's got to get to the outside. He can't get there. His guy will beat him across his face, knife into the backfield, make a play. He's just slow for me. He's just a hair late. And in this league, day late, dollar short, your guy's on the ground. And so for me, in the 6th round, 205th overall selection, center out of Virginia, Luke Bowanko, for me, I wanted to give him a double because of the versatility, but to me, he's not that good at either one of those positions. He's big, he's long, he'll compete, but he's just too slow for me. I just don't like what I see. He's a single in the 6th round. So we complete this draft in the 7th round, 222nd selection, running back out of Central Florida, Storm Johnson. You're linking him up with his quarterback, Blake Bortles, who you selected in the 1st round. And so I love this pick. And Storm Johnson, for me, is a guy, he transfers from Miami after they fire Randy Shannon, and he comes over. And you really got to see the best of Storm Johnson in 2013, because every other year that he played, and he had to sit out 2011 because of his transferring from Miami, every year that you saw Storm Johnson, you just got a little taste of what he could do at the running back position. You never really got the full extent of what Storm Johnson could be as a football player, and then you got it all at once in 2013. And so some people will knock him for 1 year of production. I don't care about that. You see the guy, you watch the tape, you know what he is. He's a versatile football player. Can run it out of the backfield, is strong. We're talking about a 6 foot, 220, 225-pound running back that is tough in between the tackles. I think he has really good balance. Is he going to make guys miss with wiggle? No. Is he a guy that will bounce off of shoulders? Yeah, you bet. He's a tough in between the tackles runner, not beating anybody in a foot race, okay? He's tough. He can move the sticks. He's a guy with forward lean when he runs the football. And I think the thing that I like about him the most is he's versatile. He can catch the football out of the backfield. I mean, really soft hands, can make plays, catching the football away from his body. And so he's a guy that can get it done for you on 1st and 2nd down as well as 3rd down too. So he'll be a great complement to a guy that you went out and got in free agency in Toby Gerhart. The only thing that I don't like about that combination of those two is that they're the same type of back. Toby Gerhart can't catch the football as well. Storm Johnson, to me, catches it better than Toby Gerhart does. Toby Gerhart is a little bit more tougher, going to run through more arm tackles than Storm Johnson will. But I think he gives you a little bit more speed than Toby Gerhart will. So you get a little bit of both worlds, the best of both worlds with these two backs. But you still lack top-end speed at the running back position. So that's something to look out for. And I think you went out and got like Justin Forsett. So he's a guy with a little bit of speed. So I think this backfield is starting to shape up in Jacksonville. And Storm Johnson, I think, gives you a dual threat. And if Justin Forsett is a guy that you really like, then I think you got 3 backs that you feel really good about at the running back position. And Storm Johnson will come in. He'll pass block. Could improve on that, but I think he'll do an adequate job of that right away, which will allow him to get on the field in his rookie season. And I fully expect him as a 7th round pick to make this football team. I don't think you're talented enough at the running back position to draft a guy like Storm Johnson and have him not make this roster. If he comes in and he performs the way that I think he can, I don't think there's any doubt that he's going to make this roster. If he stays healthy and does what he did in 2013, I think this is a guy with flexibility that allows you to do some things from that running back position. I don't see how he doesn't make this team. And I like what he brings to the table. I like the fact that you got great value in the 7th round. This is a really good football player that brings a lot to the table. In the 7th round, 222nd overall selection, running back out of Central Florida. Storm Johnson, for me, is a double in the 7th round. This is a great pick. Adds some versatility to your backfield. Gives you another guy that can tote the rock if Toby Gerhart is to go down for 4 weeks. Storm Johnson has no problem carrying the load and carrying the football 22 times and catching it another 4 times out of the backfield. He's that type of back. And so I think he's a guy that you like. And he's not beating anybody in a foot race. But another thing that you have to be wary of, and if you get the right coaching, you won't really have to worry about this. But it's always something that's a concern. He puts the ball on the carpet. He will fumble the football. Had a lot of fumbles in his junior season. He's got to carry the football with a sense of urgency. Keep it tight, 4 points of pressure. Make sure that that ball is not coming out. Sometimes he can get a little careless when contact is coming his way. If he can clean that up, you got yourself a really good football player in the 7th round. And so you look at this draft for the Jacksonville Jaguars. I thought it was a phenomenal draft by David Caldwell and company. They really, I think, made this team better from an offensive standpoint. I already feel like Gus Bradley is changing the mentality of this football team. They're getting better on defense. They went out and got a whole bunch of players on the defensive side of the football to make them more competitive there. I think this draft was more about getting better offensively, and then you added some more guys along the defense in the later to middle portion of this draft. And so I like what they did in this draft. Blake Bortles, you went and got your guy at the quarterback position. To me, the best quarterback in 2014 in this draft. Home run there. Marqise Lee has no business being on the board at 39. You got yourself a #1 wide receiver. If he reverts back to 2012, you got yourself a #1 wide receiver. And he's got a chip on his shoulder. He feels like he was discounted. He feels like he was overlooked in this draft. And so he's got something to prove. He's a home run. You get Allen Robinson. You pair him up, to me, one of the best yards after the catch, run after the catch players in this draft. Marqise Lee and Allen Robinson, to me, you got the best duo of run after the catch players in this draft. In the 2nd round, late in the 2nd round, excellent value for your young quarterback. Another home run. Brandon Linder offers you some versatility, guard, tackle combination. I think he's better suited at guard. He's a double. Aaron Colvin will compete. Has trouble when he comes up and plays press coverage, but he competes, he tackles. He's a guy that is always around the football. He's a double out of Oklahoma. Telvin Smith, interesting and an intriguing prospect. If they can get him to gain some weight, to me, he's the quintessential outside linebacker in this league. Can cover tight ends like a blanket and running backs out of the backfield. He's a triple. Chris Smith, defensive end out of Arkansas. Stout at the point of attack. I think he's better in the run game than he is going after the quarterback. If he shows explosion, some burst, he could help this Jacksonville Jaguars team get pressure on the quarterback, but he'll definitely help you in the run game. He's a double. Luke Bowanko, he's a single for me. He's versatile, can play guard and center, but I just think he's too slow. He's always late. Never there when you call, never on time. He's a single. And Storm Johnson, I think, is a beautiful way to round out this draft. You had to look no further than your own backyard, Central Florida. This guy's right up the street. And you saw the type of football player that he was in college in 2013, able to be versatile, catch the football out of the backfield, run in between the tackles, had some fumbling issues, needs to clean that up. No top-end speed, but the guy is a versatile back that will fit right into your backfield. He is a double to round out this draft. So you look at this draft as a whole. Home run, home run, home run. That is 12. A double, 14. Another double, 16. 19 for the triple for Smith. 21 for the other Smith at defensive end. You got a single, 22 and 24 to round out the draft with Storm Johnson. So now you look at bonuses. You get a home run bonus. That's a biggie. That's a biggie. Add 4 to the mix. That's 28. 1, 2, 3, 4 doubles. So you get a doubles bonus. That's 30. Divide 30 by 9. And that is a solid triple for the Jacksonville Jaguars. A 3.3 triple. That is a phenomenal draft by the Jacksonville Jaguars. Very impressive. And like I said, after day 2, I was saying to myself, this Jacksonville Jaguars draft was exceptional. And I think they added some pieces. Telvin Smith, for me, is the wild card in day 3 of the draft for this Jaguars team. If they can get him to put on weight, he could be one of the steals of this draft in the 5th round. And so I like what they were able to do. Start to finish, you start with Blake Bortles. You finish up the draft with his teammate Storm Johnson. I think it was a fabulous draft. And again, I'm going to say this one last time. If the Jaguars are a playoff contending team in 3 years, 4 years down the road. If they're competing in the AFC South, look back at this 2014 draft as the blueprint and the foundation for this team being rock solid moving down the road in the future. And so, it's a triple for the Jaguars in the 2014 NFL Draft Wrap-Up Series. If it happens in the National Football League, whether big or small, we cover it all here in the Lab Room. I thank you for joining me. You know what this is. Who's next?
Draft Zone.
Like the content? Want more? Sub up.